Welcome to another episode of the Miles Offside podcast, where we talk a little bit of football and a whole lot of nothing. We are here today to lay to rest this amazing 2018 World Cup and all the fun that it's been. My name is Oscar Puente, also known as Footy From Afar, and with me, as always, is my co-host. He still can't stop humming September by Earth, Wind and Fire. It's Chuck Bailey.
Oh my god, someone needs to explain to me why. I still have had no answers. I've asked so many people, like, why September? I don't know.
Every match. Like, over and over and over and over again. Every fucking match.
Just a mixture between that and that bloody Atomic Kitten song for Gareth Southgate and The Great Escape. You know what, I'm actually quite glad the World Cup's over. Yeah.
I tweeted this out from the account, but I was at a cafe the other day getting breakfast, and September by Earth, Wind and Fire came on, and I just started like shaking and crying, and had no idea why, and then I remembered the goddamn toot horn from the whole World Cup. With us on the other line, as always, is super producer. He's the one that does all the hard work and makes us sound great, Ian Stimson.
How are we doing?
You know, kind of aimless. I have no purpose in life now that this World Cup is done.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are younger than me, so maybe not, but have you ever had such a disappointing semi?
Not yet. Although I did just turn 30, so it can't be too far away.
Get yourself some blueies, mate.
All right. In case you didn't know, what Ian is obviously referencing is England.
Erectile dysfunction.
It's a real problem, guys.
Yeah. Links with the World Cup again. You know, it works. Pele,
yeah.
I always forget that he advertised for that. In case you didn't know, what Ian is obviously referring to is England getting knocked out of the World Cup at the semi-final stage. So I guess natural place to start off with you gentlemen. How do we feel about England getting knocked out at the semis? Is that a success for you? Is that a disappointment? A bit of both? What's your big takeaway for England from this World Cup?
I think it can't be negative. I don't care what anyone says still. As much as I argued with you at one point on the pod, Oscar, about like the correct bracket and the correct branch to be on for the best chance. I don't think you can still see it as a negative that this was the best chance England ever going to have. Like, of what? Like, winning the thing? Like, you still have to beat France, who can arguably be one of the best teams in the tournament, and, well, there you go, won it. So I think, you know, it was strange when everything happened. Like, when the early goal went in for England, I didn't feel too much joy, because there's a lot of times where we've scored the first goal and it was an early goal and we've gone out in tournaments. I think like 5 or 6 times that we scored a goal before the 20th minute and then been knocked out in that game. So I didn't really feel too much joy. And then Perisic got a good goal, and then Mandzukic at the end. It was kind of like, there you go, it's over. But it was a really weird feeling, like watching the montages afterwards and seeing the players, and just thinking like, you know, seeing England go out, but having this kind of feeling of hope and pride and almost happiness. Not obviously that England went out, but just like, fuck me, no one would have ever predicted, and none of us sure did, that England would get to the semi-final before this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I had them going out at the group stage, so pretty well overperformed that expectation on my part, at least.
Oh, yeah, we'll go into our terrible predictions.
Yeah, we'll save that for part 2. We'll get more into the actual specifics of the semi-final itself, but Ian, how do you feel about England's run as a whole, now that we've had a bit of time to process it and sort of come down from the highs and the lows of the matches themselves?
Yeah, well, as Chuck said, I mean, you offer us a semi-final place before, and we're biting your hand off. We're definitely taking that. So it's nice as well to sort of have the end of a World Cup and not be talking about sacking an England manager as well. We can have a modicum of pride in how things went, and Gareth Southgate seems like he's more tactically astute than previous managers. There's still maybe a few issues, but it was a good performance, and it wasn't 4-4-2, and it was good to see.
Yeah, it was good. Obviously, there was, you know, people still had the valid concerns about England from open play and breaking down teams.
Yeah.
And in that semi-final, they didn't really push or look good at any point, apart from very early on.
Yeah, so there's still issues, definitely.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But it's nice to know, in this, you look at the World Cup as a whole, it was close to 50% of all goals were scored from set pieces.
Yeah.
So, I mean, England do buck the trend a little bit by being over that, but you still, set pieces are incredibly important. Now, I think if that means that Southgate has that as one part of the game to build on, the next part of it, you build on how to break down teams, and that's what they can concentrate on for the next tournament. And it means that you've kind of got two plans. You can hit people on the break and learn how to break down an open play. However, if that's not working, and you can get into those positions where players can win fouls and play a certain way, as we were doing to get at some of the set pieces, and Harry Kane was playing very, very well in that way with his hold-up play and letting himself be taken down for the good of the team, then it's good to see that we could have a bit of versatility of it and not just a plan A, and if that fails, well, then fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that. You guys talking about Gareth Southgate being more technically astute and having a manager who's finally not getting sacked right after the World Cup. For me, he was the best manager in the entire thing. As much as Roberto Martinez had a couple of sort of surprising performances, as a whole, England looked really well drilled, and I think that Southgate really got the most out of his squad and the players available. We did say from the preview pod all the way through the last one that open play was going to be their issue, given the personnel that they had. I talked a lot about in the preview pod the lack of a central midfield and a really creative force there, and what are they going to do to try to circumvent that. And it did play out largely that way, where they weren't able to create what we wanted, hopefully, from them in open play. But the more impressive part to me is that Gareth Southgate kind of saw that he didn't have the personnel for that going in, and set up his team in such a way to really maximize their ability and the things that they are good at to get them to go far. And I don't think it was a fluke in any way, really, that they made the semifinal. They were strategic about which side of the bracket they ended up on, and they were strategic about not overexerting themselves playing Sweden or whatever else you might want to talk about. They knew that open play was going to be hard for them, and they just basically worked around that fundamental issue in the available players that they had, and were able to, make a deep run that was deserved. And when inevitably, or maybe not inevitably, but when the set pieces did dry up, which we did see in the semifinal against Croatia, that was when they, finally got knocked out. But that they rode their ability from set pieces so deep, I think, is a real testament to Southgate. And to me, looking from the outside in, I would want him around, and I would want this core of players around for a very long time, and just hope that, Loftus-Cheek or some other young player makes their way through a creative central midfield position and sort of gives them that more vertical option for passing. And I would be very hopeful going into 2022 if I was an England fan. I think they have a really good team. They're all pretty young. I think they were the third youngest squad at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Something like that. And there's a lot there to take away, to be proud of, and to be super, even grateful for. Because I think for a whole generation of England fans, they've never had anything to be this enthusiastic about. Yeah.
Well, you said in the last one, in my lifetime, it was Euro 96, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it is definitely, you have to be the other side of 30 really to appreciate the fact that England have done something in the past, and until now, you've never really had anything to shout about. So, it is very, very good, and having such a young squad, a young enthusiastic manager who understands what it is to be in their positions. Christ, the suffering he had and had to go through after missing penalties and stuff, to the point where Oscar, I don't know if you know this, but he was featured on Pizza Hut adverts here, and they actually made jokes about hitting the post in it. I think he goes to walk out, he throws his rubbish in a bin and it goes in, and then he turns around to say something to Stuart Pearce or whatever, and smacks into a lamppost, and he goes oh, he's hit the post again. And so all of that kind
really
of stuff.
Fucked up. I love it.
Yeah. And so needed that kind of catharsis, and you can see that with, I've watched back the celebrations and things from that penalty shootout many times, and I will dine out and masturbate over that for years to come. It's so easy. Don't need to worry about a disappointing semi with that. But overall, I think it's been absolutely phenomenal, and for such a young team, some of the star players of which were Maguire and Pickford, who I think I can't remember which way round it is, but after the tournament, they're on 10 and 13 appearances for England. 10 and 13 caps, and 7 of them come from that tournament.
It's amazing. What was the mood like on the ground the day after? Like, was it somber? Were people just talking about, oh, the boys did so well, we should just be happy? Like, what was your experience of the sort of mourning period?
Slightly disappointed and thinking that this was a good chance, but I don't think you can be.
There was no injustice to it this time either, was it? It was sort of Croatia played better, and they deserved it, and so it was sort of like you say, we'd got as far as we'd got. We deserved to go out when we went out. It was it was sort of fair enough, amazing. We got as far as we did, so that was a feeling I sort of seemed to get.
Yeah, and it didn't happen against a nothing team. Like, it happened against a great team who, I think deserved to get to a final in the same kind of way as England did. They rode their luck and they got onto a good side of the bracket, and they got very fortunate. If Russia don't knock out Spain, then it could be a completely different story.
Yeah.
So I think if you compare it to years gone by where it has been sort of penalty shootouts, or against Iceland, or because we've gone down to 10 men, or whatever.
The Lampard disallowed goal.
Yeah.
Still hurts that one to hear it, doesn't it? Actually,
sorry.
I was in this bar in Italy, surrounded by German school kids during that game. The only English person there. It was fucking shit.
The second you said it, Oscar, that just took me back.
Sorry. Yeah, Ian's having flashbacks over there. How'd your boy take it? Because I know we were talking about how he was super enthusiastic about the penalties, and he wasn't cynical enough. Like, did it crush his little soul?
It was already, I mean, he's only 8, so it was already pretty late for him to be up, and he went very quiet and went to bed, sort of very sort of quiet, and I was a touch worried about him, but he was all right. I think we'd prepped him that there was a good chance that it wasn't going to go any further, and that we had done well. So, but no, he's been infected by it, the World Cup. It's been really good, really good.
It is definitely good preparation for life, having to follow England, having to be definitely English. It's like, look, don't get too enthusiastic. It's all going to go to shit at some point. And so I think your boy is very well prepared for life ahead of him.
Yeah. Although you can't underestimate the effect of an experience like that at a formative age that it has on an entire generation of fans. I mean, if you think about people my age, I was 6 when the World Cup happened in the US, and then the MLS got founded, and I don't actually know that many MLS fans. I think more people seem to watch MLS over there than they do here. But in America, for people age 40 and under, soccer, and specifically the Premier League and La Liga, are the second most watched sport behind the NFL. And so, like, it's actually beating out basketball, it's beating out baseball, which is like America's classic sport, quote unquote. It beats out hockey. More people watch the Premier League on your average weekend in the United States than they do in England, because we have all the TV access and so many people. But it's still like, it's massively popular over here, and there's very much a generational divide between like American sports fans who are 40 and older who are like, what is this soccer bullshit? That's some foreigner sport and blah blah blah. Like, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you guys have come across that. Certainly, I deal with that shit here a lot. And then people below 40 who are like just casually referencing, Cristiano Ronaldo at lunch on like a regular day. Be like, hey, did you see he signed for Juventus? And I'm like... And
you think there's a direct line between that and USA 94?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can definitely trace it. And I think you're right. I think something like this, you look at something like the Olympics had for Britain in general when it was held over here. You look at this France team. Well, 20 years ago, look what happened. France won the World Cup. So it's no real surprise, really, if you look at it, that 20 years later, kind of a generation later, those people who would have been inspired by those kind of things have come together and won it again. And it's not just the fact that, one person who also played in it, who is now the third manager, I think, to have won the World Cup as a player and a manager. Right. To see that it really does galvanise people and push them on and create this kind of a golden generation. That's how you get it. I've got a very good friend of mine who grew up in Paris, and he's not a football fan whatsoever, hates it. And he remembers in 1998 just loving the sport because he'd walk down the street and then you'd see groups of people from all different countries just getting together and playing a pickup game of football. And it would be all across the suburbs, and everyone was happy and everything. And it's so that kind of thing and that kind of environment and those feelings can really drive people on. So I'm not surprised at all by what you said about USA and how the age divide there with football or soccer, whatever. And the fact that 20 years on from France '98, France win the World Cup again.
Yeah, for sure. And even on a smaller scale, every 4 years, I'll have a handful of people who are like, hey, I really enjoyed this World Cup thing. I want to start watching the Premier League. What should I watch? What teams should I care about? Et cetera, et cetera. And because I'm kind of the go-to guy for a lot of my friends. Uh-huh. And people that know me, because I'm obviously super obsessed with soccer. I used to, be a sports writer for a while. Obviously we have this podcast and just generally, I'm always wearing Chelsea jerseys and talking about soccer in my whole life. So people come to me, and every few years, I already got it this time, just a few people who are like, hey, teach me how to be a soccer fan. I have more interest. I want to be into this more than every 4 years, more than it just...
It seems so weird that someone would say, teach me how to be it. Just pick a team. Weird shit. The reason I started I don't follow any sport. I enjoy pretty much all sports, but I'd say it's only football where I really solidly follow a team, which is Crystal Palace. But in the NFL, I started liking the Pittsburgh Steelers because I bought a Madden game and then created a character and it did random team, and that's where I got drafted. So I was like, oh, okay, that team. And so I picked them, and then that year they got to the Super Bowl and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay. And then you figure out the lore, and you figure out the history, and you figure out where they sit and the rivalries and everything. So I think that I don't think people should have anything to fear or feel any sort of unknown.
No, not at all. I think just it can be a bit overwhelming. You guys grew up with it, so it's not weird to you, but structurally it's very different from American sports. In terms of there's no playoffs, but the teams, especially the big teams, will be in 3 or 4 competitions at the same time. Mm-hmm. So then fans are like, wait, so do they play Barcelona or do they play against Manchester United? I don't understand. And you have to be like, well, no, there's 4 seasons happening at the same time, and one is just one long playoffs. It's just a knockout competition. And one is a regular league, but the winner is just the team that had the best record at the end, and the whole 3 points, 1 point. There's just a few structural things.
Yeah.
And there's just so many leagues and so many sports, because sure, there's the Premier League, but then people are like, oh, what's up with Bayern Munich, or what's up with the Italian teams? How does that work? When do they play each other? Is that also on TV? That it can be a bit overwhelming for people who are just coming in from scratch.
Yeah, but pick it from anything. I'd say if we have any people, and I'd love it if people could get in touch and say oh, this year I've just started following the Premier League and I've started supporting Southampton, or I've started supporting Newcastle or whoever.
Don't pick either of those teams.
No, don't think I'm realistic. I was literally just thinking of the furthest team south and the furthest team north I could think of.
Okay.
And yeah, just pick, if you've ever been over here, pick a team from that place you went to, or fuck it, pick your favourite colour and just pick that team. And then just get invested in them and see what happens. Whose jersey do you want to wear?
Yeah, what I did and what I tell a lot of my friends to do is watch one season as a sort of quote-unquote neutral, and just catch as many games as you can, especially the bigger teams, because if you're going to come in externally, it makes sense to pick one of the big 6, just so you have more to sort of root for. And then just see which one kind of speaks to you.
Is that what you did with Chelsea?
Yeah, absolutely. After the '06 World Cup is when the Premier League was really, really readily available here. And Michael Ballack, favorite player ever. But Arsenal also had a couple of German players at the time. And so I was like, okay, well, those are 2 London teams. So if I'm going to ever go over, London will be the place to catch a game. And so I just watched, and I was actually really close to being an Arsenal fan, which, holy shit, can you imagine that?
Yeah, but you can say that. You say that now 12 years later, because 12 years ago you had nothing and you came in. So that's great, and then that's your story, and that's where you get to. And that's why I think people should just, if they just dive in with it and just pick a team, because, you know, if you had just picked Arsenal at that time, if you go back to where you were, there's no real difference between Arsenal and Chelsea.
Oh, no, absolutely. Arsenal had just lost to Barca in the Champions League final, I think, that year. Mm-hmm. And they were a year off or 2 years off the Invincibles. And then, obviously, Chelsea just had set the points record this season before I started watching. But the big thing for me was Michael Ballack. But, yeah, I always say just watch until your team picks you, because you'll gravitate towards... You know, certain people just really like a team that can defend and hit on the counterattack. Mm-hmm. And certain people love possession play, and like whatever appeals to you aesthetically, pick that team, and then that's your team. Like the way Chelsea played in that era was lightning fast counterattacks up the wing with Sean Wright-Phillips and Joe Cole crossing it in for Drogba, and I was like, yo, this is exactly the type of soccer that I love to see.
Yeah,
like,
you can get on board with that.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Arsenal was a bit more methodical. Shit. Anyway, we are so far off topic. We are miles offside, you might say. Let's get back to the England match. So we're talking England-Croatia. What do you think happened there?
It just looked like they were tired. And I think it was a case of young heads versus old heads. Croatia knew what they were doing, knew they could sit back for a while. It's very easy when you've got Modric, Rakitic, Perisic and Mandzukic there. Four incredible players who play for some of the best teams in the world. And they waited it out, and they saw it. And it was strange how all of the hype before the game was, Croatia are going to be tired, Croatia are going to be tired. And it was England that looked absolutely shattered by the end. I mean, Trippier literally ran himself until he just couldn't walk anymore and was crying. And so, 10 men towards the end.
That was tough to see, the Trippier injury.
That was horrible. I think he's okay. I think it wasn't anything, because did he play against Belgium?
Trippier did play in the third place playoff, so he must be okay, yeah.
Yeah, he must be fine. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that Croatia just patiently waited them out. Obviously, England went up early on that match, but then afterwards just completely lacked any ideas when the set piece dried up. When the set pieces dried up, they just didn't have a plan B, really, at least given the personnel that they had. They had no other way to sort of do anything. Kane kept dropping deeper and deeper, and Sterling looked more and more isolated up front, and all his runs were kind of going wasted. And Croatia just patiently attacked up the wings, put in a ton of crosses because they knew they had a height advantage with Mandzukic in there, and eventually scored 2 goals. And I think they were pretty deserved. Looking at the Kaylee Graphics XG sum, Croatia had 1.5, England had 0.7. So if you round those to the nearest whole numbers, it's exactly 2-1. And I don't think there's much controversy. The only thing I would say for England that kind of stood out, and we had this conversation a bit in the group chat, when they took Raheem Sterling off, they just completely shot themselves in the foot. They had one more shot, I think, in the entire match after they took him off, which was a significant amount of minutes because obviously it went to extra time as well. And they created 0 XG. The 0.7 XG that they created was in the first half. And I think that was absolutely a knock-on effect of Sterling being off the pitch. As good as the other players are, and as much as he was not putting chances away, which I think is a genuine knock against him at this World Cup, is he had a couple of clear one-on-one opportunities and he didn't score any of them. No. But his work within the system, I think it completely changed the system when he came off, and I think that they just took the wind out of their sails. They looked tired, and it wasn't a physical thing. It was clearly just a mental thing. They just were kind of broken. They just didn't look like they had any idea of how to go back in. I think that's part of the youth showing itself there. But
yeah, I think it was more like they weren't making the right decisions. And soon after, Trippier scored that great free kick, England had a few more chances close. I mean, Kane had that mental one where Subasic actually saves it, and you don't realise until you watch it in super slow-mo. But you just think how many times have you seen him just bury a ball there? And all of a sudden, does the occasion get to them? Does the pressure, do they suddenly think, oh shit, it's we can go 2-0, to go 2-0 up in a semi-final in the World Cup, it puts you in a very, very strong position. I just think that maybe that is also kind of where Croatia won it out, because they knew they were going to be more experienced. The going 1-0 behind didn't really matter to them because they were holding back and making sure they just kept England out, didn't give away the set pieces, didn't try and play any sort of dirty games or anything like that, and just let England kind of run out of ideas. And I think then the more experienced players, they come to the fore and just switch on at the right moments, know exactly when to chase a ball, when they're not going to waste energy, and then could just finish England off. And so I think it is, as we've said, like quite sad that England went out, but they were just outplayed. As simple as that. They were outmanned and kind of outgunned, and Croatia just took the chances when they got them.
Yeah, especially for the winning goal, I think you could just see how tired, especially mentally. And not just Stones, the whole defense just switched off completely. Mm-hmm. And Mandzukic was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, sure, I'll put that away."
Yeah, and he'll be there, and that's the difference. That's the difference, that he was making sure he was there, which wasn't happening with England and the way they were playing, and with Kane. It couldn't be Kane in the box.
No, if it was the same chance on the other side, I don't know that Kane has the wits to sort of run in there and put that away the way Mandzukic did. He's just always ready to score like a good veteran striker. I think that'll come with age for Kane, but kind of like Chicharito. He only needs one half chance and he'll score a goal. Are you guys already buying your tickets to 2020 Euro semi-final or final?
Well, I'm thinking about it.
It is coming home, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what we just meant, lads.
That's all we were talking about.
That's all we meant.
We were talking about the semis and the final.
Jules Rimet was French. So,
we were right all along. Yeah.
We were saying it was coming home, but it's coming via his home. I don't know.
Stopped off at Paris. Fine.
It's to put it on the Eurostar.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
That's what it is.
All right, so let's move on to the other semi-final then. France played Belgium. I think we were all very excited about this one. And then we said there was two versions of this match. There was either going to be the super exciting one where Belgium actually lured France out of their defensive low block and it turned into a shootout, or there was the version that we actually ended up with, which is France, as much as Roberto Martinez tried to entice them to attack, France just sat back and let Belgium kind of crash against, like waves crashing on a sea wall. They just kind of had nothing to go and do. France won 1-0. I don't really think there's that much to say about this match other than France did France. They sat deep. They let Belgium sort of peg them back. Belgium tried to do a crazy weird lineup like they did against Brazil. Even more complicated, I think, this time around. We spent the whole first half, because there wasn't much actual soccer to talk about, being like, are they in a 3-5-2? Are they in a 4-3-3 with no left back? Like, what the hell is going on here? It was... And I still haven't really... I went back and rewatched that match, and I still don't know what exactly Belgium was trying to do in the first half, but it didn't work. France were better. They just sat deep. And they were kind of resorted pretty early on, Belgium did at least, to trying to hit Fellaini with crosses, or have Hazard just try to do everything by himself up the left wing, because he was the only wide left player. At times it looked like he was maybe playing left wing back. And France knew who they were, knew their strengths, and they won 1-0, easy victory, and it took them straight into the final. Do you have anything particularly interesting to say about France-Belgium?
No, I think it was quite funny that you got Courtois and Hazard afterwards saying like, "Oh, France played anti-football and blah blah blah," and being really fucking bitter about it. And it's just no, you know what? They knew you can't be so arrogant as to go, "Oh right, we're going to play Belgium, who are one of the most attacking sides overall of any of the teams in that tournament." Like, you look at that lineup and there's just stars everywhere, and Fellaini and Chadley. So it makes perfect sense. It's like we said, as much as I predicted, the monster whatever goal fest I said it would be. I think it was 4-3 after extra time. In fact, I know it was that. We did also say that any perceivable outcome is kind of justifiable, and it makes perfect sense that once France went ahead, they just shut up shop. So I think Belgium had to score first to get that absolute goal fest.
And they didn't.
I never understand that mentality as well that sort of Courtois and Hazard came out with. Like, it doesn't matter how the other team play; it's your job to deal with it. If you didn't deal with it, then you didn't deserve to win.
I agree completely. I hate that shit. That's like my biggest pet peeve. Especially like, that I've been a Chelsea fan for so long and hearing people in both Mourinho eras, the first one and the second one, being like, oh, they shouldn't win, they parked the bus, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you. You do what it takes to win, given the players that you have and the strengths that they have, and you change your tactics for the other team. Like, if the other team is really attacking, why would you let them attack?
Yeah.
You stop them from attacking and then you score. Like,
it really is a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, so Belgium had 64% possession. Now, usually in a match, if Belgium are having 64% possession, they are smashing it. So, France did what they had to do and they won it. I just, that mentality can go fuck itself. I really hate it.
Yeah. I don't think it matters. Like, just because a team, no one criticises, say, obviously not so much now because they, it's been proven and done quite well, but say Burnley, Burnley or a team that just comes up, when they go up against Man City, of putting 10, 11 men behind the ball. No one criticises them for that because they understand what the threats are of the other team. But just because France is a team full of stars, surely that just means that they can better negate the opposing team by doing that and also have that outlet to get the goals.
Yeah, I think, and for me, like, as much as Belgium had the possession, they still only generated 0.5 XG. Like, that's that's not enough to be saying, it'd be one thing if the XG was like 4.3 to 0.8, and then France won 1-0. Then I'd be like, oh shit, wow. But France outplayed them. France outplayed them perfectly. They played to their strengths and negated Belgium's strengths and, exactly deserved the win that they got. And it was disappointing to hear Hazard and Courtois both saying that, given their histories and that they play for Chelsea and that they played for Mourinho and like they know better.
You've lived these fucking tactics. Don't get pissed off because the tactics that have won you titles have suddenly been used against you because all Roberto Martinez can do is just go attack.
Yeah, that is Roberto Martinez's only way. Like I remember thinking he was ridiculous when they won the cup with Wigan and got relegated. I was like, this guy's a madman. He's going to do something really fun at some point in the future.
Hero.
I will say, I don't disagree with Hazard and Courtois that it's disappointing for France to play as defensively as they did this entire World Cup, given the players that they have. Like, I, as a fan, wanted to see them open up and attack and just kind of go ham on a match and try to score like 4 goals, which is a perfect transition to the final because they did score in the final 4 goals. But from their perspective as the players who just got beat, that's just bitter and pathetic. Just, you lost. You got outplayed. Move on. Right? Like,
well, no, it's almost like France let Belgium play their game, but then just kept going, no, we're going to stop you again, and we're going to beat you back. Go on. And just like almost tempting them onto them and saying like, come on, no, we'll let you play, because that's what we've said France have done a lot of the times in these tournaments. Kind of almost let the other team set the agenda and then just beaten them. With the exception of that bloody Denmark game. Fucking
only
so
0-0.
I know, how amazing would it have been if there was no 0-0s. So good. So, the final. France, obviously world champions. 4-2, the final score. Croatia did pretty well to score 2 goals, I think, given how good France are, especially defensively. And they overperformed. Their XG was only 1.3, so 2 goals is pretty good there.
But then, how does that account for Lloris just being an absolute How much XG do you get to that? Or do you just get like none because it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake?
Yeah. I thought that was quite funny, him looking up at the big screen after the match and being able to laugh at his mistake. And you're like, yeah, if it had gone a different way, mate.
Although it definitely cost him the Golden Glove because he was probably the best keeper in the tournament. And then they gave it to Courtois, I think, instead, right?
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I mean, I know he didn't get it. I'm pretty sure it was Courtois. And he absolutely would have gotten it if they kept a clean sheet, or at the very least, if he didn't have that absolute blunder in the final. Because it'd be kind of weird to just give him an award for the best goalkeeper 15 minutes after him doing
literally,
that.
Look at what you've just done. Like, no one could contest it. It's like, this guy. You want to make this guy the best goalkeeper in the competition? This guy.
Scratching out the engraving.
Yeah.
I do want to say, though, as impressive as France were for the entire tournament, I think this final was one of their worst performances. Even though they scored 4 goals, the rough XG sum, get ready for this, was 0.3.
Wow.
4 goals out of 0.3. That, again, XG doesn't take into account penalties.
Yeah.
And own goals, because it's based on shots, so own goal is not a shot. So you kind of start them at 2 goals. You give them 2 goals, fine. But that's still 2 goals created above that from 0.3. Like, that is just spectacularly above average finishing. Like, just above what you would expect. And for them to give up over 1 of XG, I think that was one of their worst defensive performances as well. That or obviously the Argentina match, which was a little crazy. So for that match to finish as high scoring as it was just, to me, it was more individual talent than the tactical system that France had used so well. Pogba and Mbappe just being the type of superstar that allows you to wildly overperform XG. Because XG is, for the average team in that position, historically given thousands and thousands and thousands of matches of data and shots. But, like, if you are a team like Barcelona, let's say, you're going to regularly overperform your XG because you have Lionel Messi taking that shot instead of, I don't know, João Mario, if you're West Ham, or, like, whatever. And so the individual talent in this match, Pogba and Mbappe specifically, to me, is what allowed them to wildly overperform those numbers and then seal up the title. But they weren't that good as a whole, like, collectively, to me. How did that look to you, Chuck?
Well, I think, to go back to what you said about the scoreline, like, it's weird to have, like, a 4-2 final and not be, like, super overwhelmed by it, or be, like, super excited, or... it's weird that there can be 6 goals in a match, and I don't really feel like I missed much. Because of the nature of some of them, like, sure, there's the Pogba and Mbappe goal, and I thought Perisic took his goal really well, but then you've got, an own goal, which I didn't realise was the first own goal to be scored in a World Cup final.
Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was quite interesting, I thought. So you've got that. Then you've got the penalty, whatever people think of with VAR coming in and what have you, for a second goal. And the last one being Lloris and Mandzukic, that kind of thing. So really it's kind of 2-1 as a final. But, I thought Pogba took his goal really, really well.
Yeah, the pass to start that playoff and then the finish... curling around the defender was just like...
Oh, yeah. And
amazing.
Subasic just goes into, like, full malfunction mode. Like, if you watch it, like, he starts to take a step and then he just goes like, no, and just slowly falls backwards. Yeah. And kind of, his knees just kind of crumble and he just lies on the floor.
He did that twice, actually. He was the one that genuinely showed all those extra minutes. He looked tired. He looked not fully fit. He wasn't diving at shots. He would just kind of, like... He would try to cheat. And then when they went in the other direction, he'd have nothing left to do. Like, he genuinely looked tired, I think.
Yeah.
A couple of those goals were individual amazing shots by France and not great keeping by him.
The man got them to the final.
Yeah, sure.
Through those penalty shootouts. What did he save? Like, 6 penalties in 2 shootouts?
Yeah, amazing.
Like, fucking insane. And his record with penalties in general is so, so good. I think it's 1 in 3 he saved. So to have that, it's... Even though it's good feelings, like it's exertion, it's what plays on your mind. Everything kind of comes in together to kind of wear you down and just make you think, oh God, was that all of our luck almost? So yeah, he really did show the tiredness. It's weird to think that maybe that was France's worst performance, but I don't think anyone could say that they didn't deserve to win the tournament.
No, absolutely, best team at the tournament. Not the most exciting team, not the best attack, but the most well-balanced and, yeah, absolutely deserving champions. Can we skip back to the penalty for 1 second? Because I just remembered I switched off social media completely for the final. I just wanted to, like, enjoy it, disconnected. Right. And then there was no controversy, both with the people I was watching with or with the American broadcasters, about the VAR and the penalty. It was like, clearly the ball moved... The hand moved downwards to the ball, interfered, and it was, a high potential chance, and so that's a penalty. Like, that was 100% zero doubt in my head that should have been a penalty. they went to the VAR, and I was like, oh yeah, good penalty, good call, good use. And then I turn on Twitter, and I hear a couple of podcasts, and all my English friends are like, oh, VAR is only as good as the referee, and this is an example of when VAR fails miserably, and all this stuff. And I was like really surprised at the different narratives that had come up around that decision, because to me, that was a clear penalty. Like, the ball moved down to the hand, or other way around. The hand moved down to the ball. I don't see. So can you talk about, like, the English reaction to it?
No, because on all of these things we always fucking agree, and it just makes for shit radio. So I really wanted you to say, like, oh, it shouldn't have been a penalty, because I'm like, oh yeah, like, I didn't understand as well. Same as you, Oscar. Like, so I was working in the final, so obviously didn't see social media and happening live, and I just saw a few tweets about VAR and blah, 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 and it ruining, whatever. And so when I watched the highlights today and watched some stuff with them going off about it so much, I didn't fucking understand. Perisic jumps up with his arms like in a starfish kind of position. The ball kind of starts to come down, so he drops them to his side. And you shouldn't be 9 foot in the air and having your arms out like that towards the ball.
He moved his hand very far down to hit the ball. Yeah, there's zero doubt in my mind. I don't understand.
And the commentator says, I think, for it, like, oh, well, the letter of the law says, like, it's got to be deliberate for a handball. It's like, that's fucking deliberate. The ball's not firing into him from all of a sudden, like, without anything. He jumps up with his arms up, pulls them down towards the ball. Yeah, penalty.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, were you more on the side of, like, that was a bad decision, or are you with us on this?
No, I'm really sorry. I'm 100% with you, because, yeah, the thing seemed to be that people go, well, it's got to be a clear and obvious error. And it was like, well, it was to not give the penalty. So
right, yeah, it was... Okay.
Yeah. It's clear and obvious. If you don't give a penalty for something that is stonewall a penalty, then that is clear and obvious, and they should go to VAR and say, oh, that was clear and obvious, which is what they fucking did, and then gave a penalty.
We'll keep all this in, though, because I don't agree that it's shit radio if we aggressively agree with each other.
You're more right, Chuck. Okay.
If you think it wasn't a penalty, then fuck you.
Please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
If you're a fucking idiot.
There we go.
Sorry.
We won't open it. We'll just press delete right away. And thank you for wasting your time.
Cool. So we're all agreed then. It was clear pen. I mean, I will say, even if it wasn't the right decision in your opinion, or if it was a borderline decision, which none of us seem to think so, but even if you think that, VAR still gives that referee whose judgment it is to make those decisions a better look, or a second look at a decision that is massively important, because it's either a penalty or not in the World Cup final. Like, that goal makes all of a sudden...
Yeah, if you disagree with it, you disagree with the referee, not VAR.
Right. I think it's still a good thing that ref got a better look to make a better version of his own decision.
It's why VAR was brought in for the tournament, and it's why I think VAR has been great. I can't think of a time... Has there been a time where the VAR thing has been shit? There was one... England-Colombia.
Yeah, you can argue that it hasn't been used... I don't know how to explain this really, but you can argue that it hasn't been used positively in sort of situations like that, where Harry Kane was obviously, like, wrestled to the ground. So they should have said, have another look at that.
Oh, no, I meant the headbutt.
Oh, right, okay.
The headbutt
that should have been a red card.
Which made no sense, because the way that whole thing was, is like, obviously, whoever the player was now, I can't remember, but headbutts into Henderson's chest, then up into his head. And all the ref does is kind of press to an earpiece for a bit. So I don't know whether he was listening to the linesman, or it was the VAR ones, because then he gives a yellow card, but you think maybe he wouldn't give anything because he didn't see it. So he can't give anything.
It'd be great to hear those interactions as well, wouldn't it? I mean,
I'd
it
love
really
that.
would.
There was a couple of times where there was yellow cards that I was like, that it should either be nothing or a red. I don't understand yellow there. And then there was definitely, like Ian said, a couple other times where I was like, why isn't VAR bringing this up? Like, this is very obviously, like, dude did a WWE move on Harry Kane in the penalty box.
It's still up to the ref. It's still up to the ref when they give him that call, I think, for him to say, nope, I feel confident enough, because otherwise it then completely undermines him, because then he can say, they can say, oh, it was clear and obvious. But if he then comes over and says, nope, this is what I saw, this is what I believe, then for him, that's what clear and obvious is. And so that way, the traditionalists or the people that want that human error still involved, which I can't massively argue with, it will always be involved because we are human and that's just it. They still get pleased, but people like us who, I kind of want to see the right decision. I want to see stuff get called back. I want to see
more correct decisions were made.
Right. Absolutely.
Two of my favourite ones. One was Davinson Sanchez against Sadio Mane in the Colombia-Senegal game, the last one, where Mane's through one-on-one, Sanchez takes him out, and then, ref gives a penalty, but then looks at the VAR, and Sanchez performs one of the best tackles I've ever seen, last-ditch tackles. And the other one, South Korea-Germany.
Yeah, that was the other one I was going to bring up.
Because I couldn't, let you go for a week without remembering, Oscar. But
no, but I, even as a Germany fan, I was like, you know what? That's the right decision. And the laws of the game are inherently flawed, especially with handball. Handball is like the least defined, least consistently enforced rule. And so VAR isn't going to fix that issue. It's still going to be like, oh no, ball to hand or whatever. But nothing will fix that issue because it's just a fundamentally weird and unclear law that gets implemented differently by everybody. But at least now they're getting a second look and they're getting more eyes on it because there's the 5 other referees in the VAR room who are debating it before they even call the other guy. I don't know. To me, it's a good thing. So I don't want to harp on the point too much. After the jump, we'll come back. We'll wrap up the World Cup in terms of big picture stuff, like our best goal, our best player, etc. And then we'll take listener questions, and that'll be it for this week.
Welcome back to Miles Offside Podcast, where we have been wrapping up the 2018 World Cup. It's been emotional. It seems like it was only yesterday, but also that it was so long ago. But I think we can pretty much all agree it was quite good, wasn't it, lads?
Yeah,
it was a bit, wasn't it?
Amazing stuff. Really, definitely so full of exciting moments and drama, which is what most you can really ask for.
Yeah, just even from the very start, Russia 5-0 against Saudi Arabia. You had that 3-3 for Spain-Portugal.
That was a good one.
Oh, God, yeah.
The Mexico beating Germany result.
Mexico beating Germany. Every game in that group fucking was A. Group H, everything in Group H, everything in Group D. Not so much France's group. That was kind of boring.
Yeah.
That was a shame.
France as a whole weren't. We talked about this in part 1 a little bit. I wanted them to be more exciting. They were pretty boring. I think they actually are a perfect summary of the entire World Cup for me, at least, is that it was pretty boring in long stretches and then very exciting in high peaks and dramatic moments.
Right.
Because I think a lot of the matches were pretty shit. The overall level of play was not good at this World Cup, but they would be boring for 70 minutes, and then the last 20 would be 6 goals and a penalty and a red card.
Yeah. But then there's just also so much narrative with all of the good teams going behind at one point, and
yeah.
People falling by the wayside, and then obviously for us, from the English side of it, having something to get excited about, so it all becomes way, way more interesting.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird. And but in a good way, in a very fascinating way. I think that it might, in retrospect, be considered the best World Cup because you forget the 70 minutes of boring play and you just remember the 90 seconds of highlights. And there was just so much of that in this World Cup. Just so many moments of narrative and drama, and upsets and good teams being defeated by quote-unquote lesser teams and all that sort of really stuff that you really hope for, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's pretty safe to say that it went against all predictions, which...
Yeah, let's say that now, yeah.
Which, not just for us, for the media in the world as a whole.
Yeah, but especially for us.
Especially for us. For those of you that haven't been listening to us for the whole time, welcome. Where have you been? What's been going on? At the start of the World Cup, we made some predictions and wrote them down. And so we predicted across many different things. We went for who we thought was going to win, the runner-up, who would get the golden boot, who was most likely to underperform, who would be dark horses, and also which stage of the competition England would depart. We start from the very top. So, winner across all three of us.
Deutschland.
Oscar, do you remember who you went for? Yeah.
Yep, Deutschland.
I also went for Deutschland. Ian, you went for Brazil, mate.
I did.
So, technically, much better than us.
Point for Ian there, I think.
A point, yeah. Take that.
Yeah, I'll give you a point for that. Then runner-up. This is where Oscar kind of came closest out of all of us to getting something good. Not to do a spoiler for our upcoming predictions, which were shit. Oscar, you went for France.
Yep.
As the runner-up, so you at least predicted them getting to the final. That's quite good. And myself and Ian both went for a Germany-Brazil final, awarding the spots the opposite way around.
I will actually say the left side of my bracket, from pre-tournament all the way through, other than two of the round of 16 teams, both of whom I had going out, the left side of my bracket was completely perfect. I had Belgium beating Brazil in the quarters, then losing to France in the semis. I had France and Argentina. I had Portugal and Uruguay. I crushed the left side of that bracket, but the right side was just a train wreck. Anything right on the right side of the bracket.
Oh yeah, I definitely saw something, not to kind of try and vindicate us a little bit, but I've seen a few people say, if anyone predicted exactly how this World Cup knockout rounds would go, then you know absolutely nothing about football.
Yeah.
And that's what just made it so great, that it just went past all of those kind of predictions.
Pure chaos. Pure chaos.
Absolutely can root for chaos. Speaking of chaos, golden boot. Oscar.
Thomas Muller, is that right?
Thomas Muller. How many goals did Thomas Muller get, Oscar?
0 goals.
Ian, who did you go for, Ian?
I went for Neymar, didn't I?
Neymar. 2 goals. 2 goals? 3 goals?
No, I went for own goal. Pretty sure I went for own goal.
You went for own goal. And I, of course, went for Harry Kane. Alexander Mitrovic.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
He scored 1.
He scored. It was at least 1 because I got excited at one point and they could have gone through. Oh, he came so close so many times and it pissed me off. Very much like the Raheem Sterling of Serbia.
So another point to Ian there.
Another point to Ian,
so it's total 1.
Okay,
I have 1 point for my France thing.
Yeah.
If I win the predictions, it really does show that this World Cup could not have been predicted.
Absolutely. Now we go into underperformer. Now there's a little bit of leeway on this one. Because, some of us might say that Belgium not winning the whole thing is underperforming. That's what me and Ian would say, and we're sticking to it. So I'm going to give us a big tick there, Ian. That's 20 points each.
Oh, that's that dealt with. Lovely.
Underperformer for Oscar, he went for Angleterre. French for England.
Well, minus 1 million points.
Minus a billion points. Interestingly, with the next category, if you'd have just gone the opposite way round, because for Dark Horse, you had Argentina.
Oh, God.
And I definitely didn't write that the wrong way round. You went for Argentina, my friend. I went for Peru, who, of course, didn't fare much better and went out of the group stage. Ian?
I think I went for Poland.
I think you did, mate. Yeah. And I think they were one of the first teams to actually be categorically out of the competition.
Yep, that's correct. So I get a point for that because at least my team made it out of the group stage.
Yeah, fair enough.
But we all lose all our points for Belgium and England.
On the next category, a team that didn't go out in the group stage, Oscar, like you predicted, was England.
Yep. That prediction came back twice for me.
Shame. And then me and Ian both went for quarterfinals.
Oh, that's pretty close actually.
So pretty close. I think if any of us had said semi-finals, I would have been laughed at just as much as picking Mitrovic for the Golden Boot.
That would have been that ridiculous, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Why did I do that, guys? I can't remember why. That wasn't even in my throes of Lithuanian spirits. Like that was with a sober head.
Nah, you never. You were excited even before the World Cup kicked off. You were like, "Oh, that fever! God damn it, I'm getting excited." I vividly remember you being angry at yourself, like 5 minutes into our first recording, for being too excited about this England team.
Yeah, I'll
you were right though, Chuck. You were right to get excited.
I had a reason to be excited. I knew what was going to happen. Southgate all the way.
So I think Ian won our predictions, huh?
There we go.
I don't think we need to do scores, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Ian.
There you go.
The man who wants to sit in the corner and not comment on football and would just like to give steak recipes knows more than us.
Football is officially broken.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to end the podcast.
Football isn't what we thought it was.
Absolutely not. It's testament to how great everything was. But how about like some other categories?
Yeah, let's give out some awards in retrospect. Now that we've seen the whole thing, I wrote down a couple.
It's much easier, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Although we could still argue about it, and it's great. So this is where we can make sure Ian's wrong about everything. Ian, what was your favourite goal?
All of them. Just love goals, me. Goals.
All of them. Yeah, so we have a list of kind of awards we're going to give out. It's not that many, and we're not going to try to talk too long about each of them, but let's just start us off with Best Player. If you were the person in charge of giving out the Golden Ball, who would you give it to, Chuck?
It depends what kind of category you're going for, but I'd say for sheer excitement, contribution to the team, and generally just being fucking entertaining. I'd go for Mbappe.
All right, yeah. I mean, I can't really disagree with that too strongly. He was fantastic. He was definitely the breakout star of the Cup because he was 19 and just was so exciting to watch. For me, the best player, for a lot of the same reasons, but I think also for his contributions defensively and just like being so solid and helping France. I'm going to pick a France player. Just dominate both forward and backwards. I'm going to go with Paul Pogba. I think he was the heart of that France team. Best game. What was your best match, Chuck?
It's so weird because it was also the shittest game at the same time. But England-Colombia.
Okay.
On a personal level, England-Colombia, just because that feeling afterwards was unreal. Ian, I'm sure you can agree with me on that. But,
yeah, it really was.
But
yeah,
but at the same time, the match was fucking dog shit. Like, it was awful.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Like, it's one of the worst matches, but created one of the best feelings I've ever had around sport. Oh, I loved watching the Croatia-Argentina game.
Yeah, you really did enjoy that one.
Yeah, that was good.
That game, that was. I don't know whether it's just because I kind of figured that Argentina would just capitulate a bit, but fuck, watching that, and that was kind of Croatia at peak as well. That was kind of their best.
Yeah, that was their best performance for sure.
Where they just kind of went for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that game was phenomenal. Oscar?
I'm gonna go with Brazil-Belgium. I think that was the most wide open match. I think both teams just were like, fuck defense, let's just try to outscore each other. They were the two most exciting attacks at the World Cup, as much as France could have been if they had played a different way. And just that whole match, the craziness that Roberto Martinez pulled off with his tactics and his lineup, and like us all talking shit about him before, and then like it really, really working in the first half. And then in the second half, Brazil just throwing everything at them, but being able to put those chances away. Unable to put those chances away.
Yeah.
It was just so good. Like from minute 1 to minute 90, that was a very, very exciting and fun to watch match. So that's the best one for me. Best goal. What's your best goal, Chuck?
Pavard.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
That France goal. Yeah, there have been so many good ones, and you can maintain, for skill-wise, there are so many notable ones. Like Lionel Messi's one, you just watch and the mind still just boggles at it.
Yeah, the
I
touch
saw it
on the
again
thigh.
today. The touch on the thigh, the leg goes down, the leg comes back up, the touch with the left foot to take it inch perfectly away from the defender, but keeping the pace on the ball, but stopping it up.
I haven't been that excited about a touch on the thigh since I was about 13 years old, so.
Yeah. How was camp?
I'm going to go with the third goal for Belgium against Japan in the absolute last second of the match.
Yeah.
With Lukaku's run out wide and then run back in. Just one of the best counterattacks I think I've ever seen. And I really, really love a counterattack.
That was clinical, and it was, the last touch of the game. And you're right, like Lukaku runs out and makes the textbook far post to near post run, sucks the defender with him. You can see, like, he thinks about going for it.
Yeah.
And then just somehow just knows Chadley's there, leaves it, and then he just taps that in, and you just think, fuck. It was phenomenal. And the BBC actually gave that as their goal of the tournament.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so many of them are good. So many. But for different reasons. Like, the reason I chose Pavard's goal is because I like something that just comes from absolutely nowhere.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's second place for me, I think. So that the shot is just so absurd.
Yeah, like, it comes around. That's his first goal for France.
And maybe his last.
Yeah,
like, he's not particularly attacking.
No, and he just hits it so sweet. The ball flying across and just from out of nowhere. It was the Nacho goal for Spain against Portugal 2.0.
Yeah, and like even better, which is amazing. What about?
I'm just having a little look at goals. Do you remember Musa's goal, Nigeria versus Iceland?
Oh, that was filth.
I'm just having a look at that now. That was unbelievable.
The ball. It was such a nothing game as well. But, like,
that's
the ball. The ball comes across to Musa, and he's just outside the 6-yard box.
Down the left. Yeah, amazing ball down the left, like a 50-yard ball.
Flicks the ball up above his head and just fucking buries it. Like,
takes it around the goalkeeper at such speed and then just smashes it. Yeah,
I don't remember that at all. Maybe I didn't happen to watch that match.
No,
I thought I watched pretty much every match, but I don't remember that goal.
There's been so many, to be fair.
Yeah.
While you were talking, I was just having a little Google, and God, that is a good goal.
That's a nice hipster pick from you. I like that.
Yeah.
Go for Nigeria. I saw my first hipster in a Nigeria shirt the other day. He was just sitting in the pub, and I walked down. I thought, you absolute dickhead. Like,
weeks after they went out.
Yeah, they sold 3 million of these, and you're the first one I saw with it.
So was it your own reflection in the mirror behind the bar, or some other hipster?
Wear a collared shirt if you must know. At work, I look very smart. Thank you very much. Collared shirt, tailored shorts. What up?
Ooh, all right.
Do you still work at the zoo, Chuck?
Yeah.
Nicely done. Fantastic.
Bastard. So, interestingly, on the subject of goals, like we're talking about this World Cup, 169 goals scored out of 64 matches, so an average of 2.64 goals per match.
It's amazing.
Which is 2 goals less than the last World Cup.
Is it?
Yeah, so 169, 171 for Brazil.
Yeah, that was 7 of those were in one match, so I think that kind of like put it. There was no.
Oh, come on! Don't be harsh on Brazil. There were 8 goals.
But that does bring me to a point that I actually would want to make, which is that there were no matches that felt as monumental as that one. Like that Brazil-Germany 7-1 match will go down in history as one of the best World Cup matches ever. Like, and it's going to stay on that list if it's not the number one on that list, just in terms of like nothing matched that in this World Cup.
No, I remember watching it and sort of trying to explain to my wife, you don't know how crazy this is.
Yeah, you felt that it was history as it was happening.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. But if you think of this tournament, so let's think of the most high scoring games. So 4-2 France-Croatia. We already said about that, like it wasn't really much, 3 goals,
4-3 Argentina.
1 from a set piece. Yeah, 4-3 Argentina was kind of it still wasn't that sensational. 5-0 for the opener. Well, it was Russia,
Right.
so people don't really think about it. 3-3 Spain-Portugal.
That was a good one.
However, it was a great match, but it's the first one.
And
so
it was a draw.
England-Panama, modern classic.
yeah, England-Panama. Like, no one's really going to look at that, you know. Kane hat-trick, golden boot.
Yeah, meant everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Dave Stateo as well for predicting pre-tournament that France win and Harry Kane gets the golden boot. Like,
Yeah, we should get him on the pod.
Well, let's not be hasty. I mean, I won the predictions, so carry on.
What's next? Most underrated player. I'll throw in Pogba. I think he was the best player at this tournament, and I didn't hear him in a single conversation for the Golden Ball. I think he doesn't get enough credit for France either, being their springboard and being everything, being the absolute heart of that team. I haven't really heard that many people talking about that from him. So for me, I think he was wildly underrated for his contribution to the win.
yeah, I think I'd go with that as well. I think it's quite difficult to predict because every team that got really far. So if you look at England, there's no real standout there of someone who shone. Like you can pick out quite a few players, but everyone's kind of in the conversation.
Yeah, although there is one English player who was not valued enough for his contributions and underrated.
Well, yes, but he also didn't score.
Yeah.
Swine. But yeah, so it's quite hard to say who is massively underrated. Maybe I'd probably go with you there and say Pogba. Kante maybe as well because he's just he's always underrated, but now he's so underrated he's always rated, if you see what I mean, because he just gets on with it.
Yeah,
I'm sure I saw something as well that the day of the final he had like horrendous diarrhea and basically had to convince Deschamps to let him play.
Well, they took him off at like halftime, so that might be part of why.
Gary Lineker shit himself on the pitch. If Kante didn't want it enough, it's his problem.
True story. And then went around like a dog shuffling to wipe his arse
like
off.
he's got worms or something.
Oh my god!
I'll just sneak this out. No one will notice.
No one will notice. Oh wait, England playing white. Of course they fucking will.
Oh god, this took a turn.
Yeah, Gaz has lost his head. Yeah, well, you've lost your arsehole, mate.
All right. What about the other side? Not things that were good, but things that were bad? What was your most disappointing player? Who did you want more out of?
Sterling.
Okay, wow.
You're turning on the official player of the podcast.
But yeah, I did kind of want to see more, and it was kind of from just the unequivocal being able to just shut the critics up and all those idiots because goals is the only way he can contribute. Not playing within a system and playing it masterfully and making defenders absolutely terrified. I would have just liked to see more in that way. On the kind of other end of the scale, let's say the kind of superstar scale, Neymar. I think Neymar, out of every person at this tournament, did himself no fucking favours.
Yeah.
And as if anything, has just inspired criticism, ridicule, infamy from everywhere. You know, the fact that you see videos of kids, like 50 kids running up the pitch with a football, and a coach just shouts Neymar, and they all just drop to the floor and start rolling. Like you don't want that.
Yeah, I think his stock and his esteem in the football community has dropped significantly. If he was in the conversation for being the successor to Messi and Ronaldo, coming into this World Cup, I think he leaves it being, at best, even with Eden Hazard, if not, like, way, way, way lower. No, like, I think he did himself very much a disservice with his performance at this World Cup.
I'd go on. I'd say he's below Hazard. No, but that's it. Because if that's going to be the side to your game, and that's going to be what you want to do and what you want to make, you know, it's kind of in the same way that Ronaldinho's career was kind of blighted by like all the craziness and reluctance to train and parties and whatever kind of rumours or whatever.
Yeah.
Neymar will just be the same. The fact that he just couldn't, you know, he starts off the World Cup as a stupid haircut and ends it as a stupid idiot rolling around the pitch. Like, well done, mate.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't disagree with you in any way whatsoever. On a personal level, for me, I'd go with Toni Kroos. I think he was very much one of the two most culpable people in Germany's disappointing World Cup run. And he just looked like he could not be fucked to defend. He just counterattack after counterattack. He would just watch it go by and just be like, oh well. And he was just like, I was so mad at him. And he should be the single best player on that Germany team. Like, he has the way he plays for Real Madrid. If you look at, I mean, this is such a stupid way to look at it, but like, if you look at their FIFA ratings, his is the highest. He's the only one in the 90s range. Like, he really should be the leader of that team. And his attitude of like, I could not give any less fucks about this situation and about us getting beat right now. He just wanted to like play a few tricks and flicks, and so, you know, despite that amazing free kick, like, he was reason number one of Germany's performance for me, and he's so much better than that. So that was very disappointing.
Yeah, but I couldn't even, not to make you feel bad intentionally this time, Oscar, but I'd genuinely almost forgotten about Germany at this tournament.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not wrong.
I bet just to interrupt, I mean, if I was going to pick a Germany midfielder who really disappointed, I'd pick Manuel Neuer.
Yeah, I will give you that. I tell you what.
Sorry, I wrote that down about 5 minutes ago, so
No, by all
means. You say 5 minutes ago, you wrote that down 5 weeks ago and have been waiting to get this in.
Yeah, before the World Cup even started. Really, really, really weird.
He was good at predictions. Let's face it, Oscar.
Exactly.
Yeah, that moment, oh my god, it was so good. Just the fact that it's still like it was prefaced by a commentator saying, well, Manuel Neuer, he can play in midfield. He's renowned for being quite good with the ball at his feet.
That was one of them moments where it was just delightful.
Yeah.
Oscar, you don't sound too enthused.
No, I mean, it was fucking hilarious. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. I'm trying not to get defensive and be like, oh, but really, like, he is actually pretty good. Like, I'm not going to, like, whatever.
We all know don't get me wrong.
Good. Manuel Neuer, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. But Ian said it, he's a shit midfielder.
Yeah.
That was such a good moment.
Yeah, just pure desperation and madness at the end there. Just such a sad way to go out. Pathetic. Like, genuinely pathetic.
Yeah, I felt really bad for South Korea.
Although, weirdly enough, I wouldn't pick Germany as my most disappointing team. I would actually go with Spain. Because they just looked... I was so fucking mad when they got knocked out. Because they went back to old Spain and they should be better than that. And just like... When they got drawn on that corner of the bracket, they must have assumed they were going to make the final.
Yeah,
right. Like,
yeah, but you can't fault the fact that they, in true mental fashion, they decide to fire Lopetegui 2 days before the tournament starts.
Yeah, that's true.
So you know, I can understand why the first game in, I can't remember the guy's name now. It's not even worth because he's the guy who took over for the tournament for Spain had already straight away declared himself like, no, I don't want the job. So like he didn't want the job anyway. He wasn't put in. I think he was the under-23s coach or something like that. So you know they've already been preparing for the first game, which is Spain-Portugal. So you can see there. But then after that, you've got a guy who hasn't ever worked with this squad of players and has got four days to prep them with a game, albeit against like Morocco or Iran. But these are teams that have been preparing for weeks, months of how to defend and how to stop them. Yeah. So it didn't really surprise me that much that Spain looked so shit. But you like to think like players with that quality. Just to finish the point, like you'd like to think that players with that quality who have won tournaments together, who have done great things and played together for so fucking long, can just buck up their fucking ideas and go, oh no, you know what? We are just going to bury Russia right now, as opposed to sitting back and trying to score the perfect fucking goal, as opposed to just going, right, let's just score, done.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I was just really, really excited for the first sort of post-Barcelona Spain team, if you know what I mean. Like, post-Tiki-Taka, post, like, Pep Guardiola's Barcelona team. This was supposed to be the first Spain team that played, like, more direct football, a different style, more efficient, more ruthless. And then they just showed up and did the worst impersonation of tiki-taka that they could. That was super disappointing for me.
It takes a lot for me to feel sorry for Diego Costa, and I felt sorry for Diego Costa in that tournament because he was doing absolutely nothing wrong. He was the one who was in that spot, who was always up there. He was nicking goals in games, and they were just bringing him off at 60 minutes to then revert back to this. I'm going to say it again, shitty taka. I coined it. I can say it. And that's what it was. And so, I felt bad for him. And he did absolutely nothing wrong. In the same kind of way as when Sterling was being brought up in games for Rashford, because it then meant England were kind of toothless. When Costa came off for Spain, they looked like they had nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely
nothing. Yeah, I agree.
So that kind of wraps up our little honourable mentions to various games, performances. Ian, have we had any listener questions this week?
Yeah, we have indeed. So Johnny OG got in touch on the Twitters and said he excludes me from this question for some reason, but says if there was one player at the World Cup that your team could realistically buy, who would that be? I know you guys talked about who had sort of played themselves into a transfer, but who would, Chuck, you being Palace and Oscar being Chelsea, do you think there's anyone who's particularly put themselves in the shop window for your teams?
I mean, I think it's a bit unfair comparing all of our three teams. Since,
the budgets are pretty wildly different.
Peterborough are a selling club, Palace have no money, and Chelsea just have everything but are pretending they don't.
Peterborough are selling and buying club, to be fair. I think we've bought a whole new first 11 for this new season.
I think some of the Saudi Arabian defenders are available for Peterborough.
Thanks, Oscar. Cheers. Yeah. We'll take them.
Yeah, we will. Oscar, is there anyone that stood out for Chelsea that you'd like Chelsea to go ahead and get?
Apologies if you guys hear some scraping and banging. There's some work being done on the outside of the house right now, which is pretty terrible timing, but it is what it is.
Oscar's actually terrified there's men breaking into his house right now. But he's so committed to the podcast, guys, he won't stop recording. And so while we share Oscar's final moments...
So to answer your question, though, I would say Douglas Costa. What he brought in the limited minutes that he had for Brazil, and especially when he played in place of Willian and how much better he was than Willian...
No, take my wife, not me.
What he brought when he came in for Willian and in place of Willian just showed to me how much Chelsea are lacking a dangerous option on the right wing that can penetrate and move the ball as much as Hazard does. And so, that is a perfect example of someone right there who I think could be reasonably valued in the market and not be overly expensive. I would want to say Kylian Mbappe for bringing the ball up the right wing, but he's going to cost £200 million whenever he moves. So, probably Chelsea don't want to break the bank for that. But Douglas Costa, I think, is clearly better than Willian and would take a lot of the pressure off of Hazard the way he took pressure off of Neymar when he was in the lineup for Brazil. So that's who I would look at. What about you for Palace, Chuck?
Yep. It's tough to know with the limited budget, and Hodgson coming out this week and saying basically that we have no money and survival is the goal for this season. Even though the last 3 years at the end of the season the chairman's gone kind of, oh no, we want to keep moving forward, blah blah blah, and it's at the end of last year he blamed the start of the season on him for making poor decisions and not backing them and whatever. But anyway, enough about Palace.
Because I don't want to talk about Palace anymore.
Yeah. I'll just be happy for the season. I like football.
Come on, football. Okay, so we got another one from Mike Swiffen. So what was your favourite World Cup moment that was not necessarily part of a match? As in the crowd, punditry, anything like that?
I suspect that Chuck's going to have the same answer as me for this one, but Diego Maradona's coked out antics on the sideline. He starts looking up at the sky like he's possessed by some sort of demon, and then he's flipping people off 10 minutes later. Fantastic.
He's flipping off the Nigerian dignitaries and stuff like that. There. Yeah. I'm sure that's what it is. Like whether it's him kind of praying up to the heavens and chewing his face off, dancing with ladies that are there during the Nigeria game.
Then he fell asleep like 10 minutes later.
Fell asleep. Supposedly, I really think he did, handing off bags of drugs to people in the crowd. Getting taken in by like ambulance people at the end of one of the games. And
he's carried it on as well, hasn't he? He's arrived at his new club in a tank.
What?
Have you not seen that?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my god, you gotta send that out.
Hold on, I don't know what's more ridiculous, the fact that he has a new club or the fact that he rolled up in a tank.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Dynamo Brest. Is that right?
Of course he goes for Dynamite Breasts.
It's very possible I've been taken in by a spoof website.
Yeah, this sounds fake.
I mean, it's all not added up now, I think about it. But yeah, no, rolls up in a tank to his new club.
That's amazing.
Of course, but yeah, and then he went to supporting Colombia for the England game.
Talk about people who made fools of themselves at the World Cup.
Oh yeah,
Jeez.
like it was kind of a favourite moment at first, but then it got very sad very quickly.
Yeah. Wow. Way to bring it down, Chuck.
I'm not going to include that. We'll just leave it laughing at a coked up maniac.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I might cut it if it turns out this tank thing isn't true.
No, you gotta leave that in. You have to leave that in.
Yeah, no, leave it in.
I did like, in particular, I liked some of the commentary. Ali McCoist was a massive favourite for me on the ITV.
Yeah, he was good.
Punditry. He was great because like it was almost like they were deliberately. The way they were doing it was deliberately to be super cheesy. So, Oscar, you probably wouldn't have seen these streams at all. But, you know, when there's a lull in the game, like someone would just turn to Ali McCoist and go, "So, Ali, you've been spending a lot of time in Sochi. How have you been finding it?" "Well, you know, in 1724, and we're just like go over like this and properly go into the history. But like shamelessly, like not like pretending like to be actually informative, but saying like, "Oh, I've been loving this restaurant and I've been having the national dish, which is this. It was cooked for me by Svetlana and she had it and we had this and had many mornings and I enjoyed it and that was so good." And just
we didn't have anybody that entertaining on our commentary. It's so bad.
I've got a few, but like I haven't got any details. That's why I've got a few. But they were just little things that added colour to the World Cup. So apparently, when Mexico scored their goal against Germany in the group stages, Mexican seismologists registered a 4.2 on the Richter scale earthquake. Which which is like substantial. But I don't know whether, like I say, I've got very little details, so I'll move on to the next one. Next one was a Peru fan who was so desperate for tickets to the World Cup group stage matches that he thought his best way to get guaranteed tickets was to get a disability seat, and the best way he could do that was to try and put on 24 kilos.
Jesus Christ!
Like over 3 stone, so he could get one of the extra wide seats.
That's
I don't know what
what did he just eat? I don't know. Croissants
for our American
90...
fans. 24 kilos is like 56 pounds.
Yeah,
exactly. like it's a substantial amount of weight.
Yeah, I don't know if he was successful or not. And the other thing is the massive increase in waistcoat sales that M&S had. Apparently, even in Moscow, M&S, they sold out of waistcoats.
I find more astounding. Wait, there's an M&S in Moscow?
Apparently so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's with the waistcoats thing? I don't get that.
Different kind of marks. See what I did there?
Yeah.
It must be from Gareth Southgate.
Communism.
It must be from Gareth Southgate. Like everyone was going for like Waistcoat Wednesday over here.
Did you not get that? Did you not get that fashion memo, Oscar? That waistcoats are now the thing.
No.
Waistcoats are in.
We don't really take our fashion tips from the Brits very often.
All right, go fuck yourself.
Just for clarity, right now, Oscar is wearing a wife beater with Hakuna Matata on the front.
Hey, it's summertime over here.
Yeah.
We actually get heat.
Show us that, Oscar. I'll take a picture for the Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God damn it, you really are.
I like that you don't do control print screen.
No, fuck it. I'm analog all the way.
Hey, he's old. He doesn't understand technology, all right?
It's called
Oh, wow.
It's a
okay. It's taken 7 episodes for the old gags to come in.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I can't just harp on the hipster thing with Chuck, you know? I gotta get a couple of digs into you, too. While we're on crazy stories, I did also still love the jerseys thing with Korea. Like, that they switched jerseys at practice.
The Swedish spies.
Oh, I forgot about that.
They bought a house next to the practice. It's amazing.
High-powered telescopes.
They won the group, though, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And my question section wouldn't be complete without Dave Matteo.
Hey, Dave! Didn't appear last week. I was very upset.
No. So
sort your shit out, Dave. This better be a good one.
Okay.
No pressure.
I'll leave this to you to decide whether this is a good one. Why do I keep having a dream where Stimmers is my professor teaching me to code player interactions and heat mapping? Now, I took the liberty of doing a little bit of dream analysis on this. So,
what does it mean if Ian Stimson appears in your dreams?
He appears in mine like every night, so...
Yeah, exactly. You're only human, Oscar. So, the thing is, so this could mean that Dave's got a problem with authority. If you're dreaming about teachers, it can mean that Dave's got a real problem with authority. It depends on our interactions during the dream. Also...
Were they sexual in nature, Dave?
Well, this is the next thing I'm going to come back to, Chuck.
Can we get Dave on the line?
We should slide Dave in. But the thing is, because I'm insanely arrogant, I'm assuming that Dave is having sex with me during this dream. I mean, it's that is just something I assume. And if he's having sex with me in this dream, then that means that because I'm a teacher in this dream, apparently, and this is legit on like the dream analysis website that I googled and was the first hit. So apparently that.
You were feeling lucky, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Apparently that means that Dave needs to learn more about sex.
There you go.
There you go.
And maybe that's what the heat mapping teaching is about.
Yeah.
It's about which bits to rub. You know?
Yeah, it was all around the centre circle.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I got nothing for that. I'm just going to leave that alone. Dave, you should go talk to a therapist, I think, is the takeaway from this.
Yeah, I think just know that it's a safe place, Dave.
Yeah. If we could work that into every episode, that would be great. Just like, it's a safe space.
Who's having dreams about Ian or?
Yeah.
So that's it for questions this week. But there's a few things I wanted to do a bit of admin with you guys. So our predictions went really well. I mean, it obviously went very badly if I won. But we were thinking about doing some sort of game that involves our listeners during the actual football season when it starts, the Premier League football season. And so we wanted to see whether people were interested in like a Super 6 or something like that. So let us know if you're interested in that and we can start up a little Just for Fun league. I also run a FPL cash league, which people can enter. I do a £10 entry and the whole pot gets paid out to everyone. We had 23 players last year when I ran that. And also, I didn't tell you guys, but I've also attached the milesoffsidepod@gmail.com email address to my PayPal account so people can PayPal the £10 and that will go into my PayPal account.
Perfect.
But I'm fully trustworthy and it won't go into buying Nigerian shirts, I promise you. But if you've got any questions or any comments, as we've said, we're trying to sort of pivot to other things as well as football, although we will be doing Premier League, Champions League, as I think Oscar's said in the past. If you've got any questions or comments that pivot to other things, that would be good. You can get us on Miles Offside Pod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you've got anything longer, milesoffsidepod@gmail.com, or if you just want to PayPal me money.
Although, if you can't get your thoughts into 280 characters, like you're waffling, guys. And this is from the people that can't get a podcast under an hour and a half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's after a massive amount of editing.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You don't realise, we actually record these things 7 weeks in the past, and our World Cup predictions are just that fucking good.
Yeah. We predicted there was going to be a World Cup.
Yep. Correct.
There might be one in 4 years.
Well, 4.5 years now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. I have so many thoughts on that. We'll save that for a different day, though.
It's like November 22nd to December 18th. Well, we've got, Premier League starts in 23 days. the European Nations League is this new thing that no one fucking understands.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing until like a week ago.
Dude, like, we don't have time. Like, seriously, we don't have time right now to talk about that.
We will definitely talk about
it next
that
week.
in pre-season. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I've spent about 2 days trying to figure out how it works. I'm still not there.
But as a little primer for something other than football, because I listened back to a few of our episodes and I thought something that was possibly a vein for some content would be the possible cultural differences. We're a transatlantic podcast, and I like that.
I like that.
And something I was listening back to was when Oscar sort of went, which is a perfectly valid thing, was like, do you guys have Kit Kat? And like, to me and Chuck, that was just like, yeah, of course we have Kit Kat, but that's a totally valid thing. I've never been to America. I know, Chuck, you have. But like, there are a lot of cultural differences, and I like the idea that we can, if anyone would like to ask about anything, either Americans would like to ask about any really weird British things, or vice versa, we can answer those things, and I'd quite like that. So if you've got anything like that, bring it in. Yeah,
so like, for example, little known fact, Americans wear their underwear on the outside.
Well, there you go. It's more hygienic.
We've all seen Superman, mate. We've all seen Superman.
That's where we got it from.
Exactly. So if you want to ask us about, the weird British stuff, like, I don't know, like Marmite and black pudding, both of which are great. So,
well, you're wrong there, but carry on.
What? You don't like black pudding?
I love black pudding. I hate Marmite.
Oh, okay. Well, 1 out of 2.
They're both gross. So.
And we were looking for disagreements.
And there we go.
I will throw out a call for some reviews from our American listeners on iTunes, please. We are 5-star rated and easy to find on the UK and international iTunes, but in America we only have like 2 or 3 reviews, so we're not quite showing up on the right lists just yet. So if you are an American listener, take the 30 seconds, tell us like what's your favorite way to eat a steak, or if you wear your underwear on the inside or the outside, whatever you want to throw in there. 30 seconds, a couple of stars, 5 stars hopefully, and that would be really great. We would super duper duper appreciate that. So
yeah, so I think that's all the admin. If you can see your way to doing us a review, we would really appreciate it. We're a new podcast and it really helps. So, but thanks for all those that have reviewed so far. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And please follow us on Twitter. Send whether it's the podcast itself at Miles Offside Pod, whether it's me at Chuck_Bailey_, Oscar
at Footy From Afar, FOOTIE,
or Ian
at Ian Stimson, STIMSON. No P. Really annoys me. No P.
They sell pills for that.
Fantastic. So please get in touch. The World Cup's gone. World Cup's gone. It's been emotional.
It's been great.
It's been great to talk through it and have you guys come on board with us. I remember like 6.5 of the 7 episodes, so you guys are kind of one up on me. So that's it from us for this week. Say bye, Ian.
Bye.
Oscar.
Oscar.
And it's bye from me. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.